originals. It sounds like it, doesn't it? Sound like
Yeah.
it's one of Anthony's originals? Yeah. Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. And I kept it together too.
I didn't.
And ever since I heard that Jody was going to be our speaker for Mother's Day this morning, I've been so excited for this day, and here we are. Jody has been an educator for 20 years, a mother for 14 years, and her passion is around helping people to express their true, authentic selves. When you meet her and interact with her, you can just feel that energy oozing out of her. So I'm so delighted that she is here to talk to us about motherhood. Please help me welcome Jody Swift.
Check. Hi. Oh, I love all these smiling faces looking back at me. I was gonna come up here without Kleenex. I said to Mark, if I need Kleenex, make sure you run up. And then Anthony did this song, and I'm like, Susan's like, I've held it together. I'm like, I'm a mess. I'm a mess. I have to have my Kleenex beside me. So I'm just gonna bring that up. I'll pop this to the side. Let's see if we can bring it up a little bit. Can I bring this up? Okay. Decided to do
You
this
tell me
in
when.
small print. Okay. And we're good there. Thank you. So my journey into motherhood began long before I actually became a mom. And I remember just wanting desperately, kind of at the end of my 20s, really wanting to be a mom. And, you know, it's that phase in life where you see people walking by, and even the men with really fat bellies, you think they're pregnant, right? You're like, why does he get to be a mom, right? But I really wanted to be a mom, and it wasn't happening for me, and it wasn't happening for me, you know, and you just kind of see it everywhere. And I just got to the point where I was like, I came to peace with the fact that maybe I was never meant to birth my own children. That, oof. Here we go. Okay. Maybe I was just meant to nurture the world's children. Thus becoming a teacher, right? And so, of course, early on in my teaching career, I wanted to adopt half of the kids that I taught. I was like, oh, I'm gonna show you unconditional love, because I ran into a lot of kids who really needed it. And I'll never forget the day that I went to the doctor and I was super sick and I thought I had mono, right? Like I was like, I feel gross, my head hurts, my boobs hurt, like it was bad. My girlfriend's like, dude, you gotta get to a doctor. And I go to the doctor and she's like, you need to take a pregnancy test. And I was like, you're cray-cray. Like, there's no way I'm pregnant. We've been doing this for 4 years. And I remember doing the test, and I remember looking to the left and seeing Parenting Magazine and Oprah. And I was like, Oprah it is. Because I just knew what I didn't know, right? So she walks in and announces that I'm gonna be a mom, and I just like fell apart and fell into myself. And my very first spiritual experience was the day that my belly was out here and I could actually put a remote control on it, you know, and I was like, yeah. And I was comparing my belly to my dad's belly because he always had a rockin' hard, you know, beer belly. And I was like, Dad, like I've got you beat, you know? We compare. And I remember being like, I wonder how cool it would be to connect with my kiddos spiritually, which most people could probably just close their eyes and go there, but I'm a very experiential kind of person. So I remember diving into the swimming pool at the local pool, and I swam to the bottom, which was an effort, by the way, with this belly. Swam to the bottom of the pool, and I sat at the bottom of the pool, and I thought, this is how the baby must feel. Surrounded in water, this weird kind of sound on the outside, right? And I was like, there you are. There we are together. And how magical that experience was, right? Fast forward to actually delivering and being absolutely littered with self-doubt. How many of you believe that your children choose you? or that children choose their parents. Does anybody else have that belief? Okay. It's an astrological belief, and it totally aligns with who I am. So you could imagine my sheer disappointment as an early on mom that really was littered with self-doubt that my children chose me. I was like, oh my gosh, my kids are idiots already. Like, what are they thinking, right? Why would they choose me? This is insane. You see, I wasn't the mom that actually packed the school lunches with sandwiches and juice boxes and all kinds of sugary treats, right? I was not the mom that bought them matching name brand outfits and sent them to school. I was not the mom that even fed them cow's milk. They didn't consume cow's milk until they were at my mother's house when they were like 4 or 5 years old. You see, I was not the mom that held the play dates and talked about poop for hours. I was like, I am not doing that. You know, maybe 1 or 2 play dates, but then that was kind of enough. You see, my kids were being socialized outside of the norm of sugared treats and processed food and gossip and connection. And I just thought, you know what? If my kids didn't have that in their life, then they're gonna grow up to be community-minded and kind and super uber healthy, right? Oh, heavens. I remember, yeah, right? Oh, they become our greatest teachers. My son at 6 years old came in the door and he was like, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he's like, I just want to take a sandwich to school. Like all the other kids. And I was like, oh, I thought he got beat up on the playground, guys. Like, this was like an epic moment for him. And I was, you know, his dad kind of brushed past me and interrupts him, and he's like, honey, he's like, sandwiches. Bread has maybe a little bit of niacin, iron, and a little bit of fiber. This kid's 5 years old, okay? This is his father talking to him. A little bit of iron and niacin, maybe a little bit of fiber. It's not really good for you. You don't want to put that in your body, and besides, when you know better, you do better. And I'm off to the side going like this. And I just see this little boy, and he's sunken. His shoulders roll forward, and his little fat lashes land on his fat little cheeks. And he's broken. And I look over, and I'm like, I'm going to buy bread. And I go to walk out, and my baby daddy, I like to call him at the time, says, whoa, what are you doing? And I go, he was going to put his foot down in this moment, which had me back with bread 15 minutes later, right? Because that's how that always goes. But he's like concerned. He's like, you're going to give in? And I said, you know what? I'm not willing to risk my kid's social capital and his emotional well-being over bread. It's not happening. I'm like, I'm going to go get the kids some bread, right? My son skipped to school the next day, and I said the Serenity Prayer one more time. Do you guys know the Serenity Prayer?
Yeah.
Oh, God, grant me the strength to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I said it so many times when my kids were babies that they started to repeat it after me. In those really frustrating moments too, when they do something that you just want to like, do one of these, and then I'm like, God, and then kids are like, grant me the strength to accept the thing, you know, in this kind of snooty voice, and I thought, oh. And so I had those moments where I was like, you know, maybe I'm not the best person for this job. And have you guys ever had those moments in your life where, you know, the universe just sends you exactly the lesson you need to learn in a way you hope you didn't have to learn it? But, you know, you're like, you've got this newfound wisdom. My newfound wisdom, by the way, was that my kids' social and emotional well-being superseded my own personal values. Right? That their care and attention to who they are and who their spirit was so much more important than bread, right? And so I was like, okay, it is my job and my role to protect that part of them. I was so scared that somebody was going to break their spirit or break their heart so much more than break their arm, right? And so that was my newfound wisdom. And then, of course, the universe sent me a lesson, right? So I'm in the playground, and I'm about 20 feet away from my youngest, and my youngest was, he was the shy kid, the kid that I refused to let anybody call shy, but it was very obvious that he was shy. I was like, he just needs some warming up, right? We don't call him, let's not label the child, right? Let's just say he needs a little warming up, and then he'll get used to. Well, I remember he was on this piece of playground equipment, and it was like this balance beam, and his hands were out, and he was like, you know, doing one of these, and he's like, Mommy, look at me! And I was so filled with pride. I was just like, oh my gosh, this kid never takes risks. He was like my shadow from birth. And there he was, 20 feet away, like feeling like he was on top of the world, and I was like, yes, baby, go, baby! And out of nowhere, this like little 6-year-old, he has his hands out like this, walks over and grabs him by the arm and yanks him off this playground equipment. And I was like, possessed. I came out of my seat and I was like, whoa! And I made it to my son in 3 steps. 20 feet away, I was like, boom, boom. And he comes running at me and attaches to me like a panda. And I'm not even holding on to him. He's holding on to me and I'm going after that girl. I'm like, whoa! And this voice comes out of me. I'm like, don't you touch my son. And this little tiny voice in my head is like, who are you? Right? But it did not change anything. And she's like, ah. And I go, where is your mother? And she goes, she's not here. Well, of course, I've scared the crap out of this little girl's friends. They're like, our day home provider is over there. And I'm like, thank you. And I walk over to their day home provider. This kid's still strapped to me like a bungee. And I'm like, this girl grabbed my son. And of course the day home provider's like, not again, Olivia. Go sit down. That's not appropriate. And I'm like, and I kind of start walking back and I feel this kid melt off my body. And I look down at his little face and he looks up at me and I go, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, Mommy. And he runs away, and I continue walking back to my seat. And my girlfriend looks at me and she goes, are you okay? And I was like, no. Something came out of me. Like there was a moment there. And she started to laugh and she goes, you just met your mama tiger. And I was like, what was that? And I realized in that moment the lesson my son brought me, and that little girl who survived, by the way, because that was iffy for a few minutes, that I was the perfect parent for them, because I would have done anything in that moment to protect my child. And I thought, there is no need to fear anymore. That whatever the plan is, the universal plan for these kids, I now trust that is meant for their highest good. And that clearly, if something goes down, I'm gonna be there, right? I actually said to my oldest, I'm like, I don't think you could play football. I don't think that's a good idea. And he's like, why? I go, I'm a little concerned that if I watch somebody tackle you, that I would be on that floor. Like, I'd be out there, and then I'd just embarrass you. It would be bad. Like, don't you touch my son, right? In these sports. So I had to calm down. I learned a little bit about myself in that moment. So on a little bit more of a serious note about parenting. Before we get there. I realized that parenting really has made me do unfathomable things. And some things that I was just kind of shocked by, like realigning my values around lying. I'm totally okay with lying now. I thought that lying was such a bad thing until I locked myself in the bathroom one day and my kids were like, Mommy, what are you doing in there? And I was like, going to the bathroom? When clearly I was on social media, right? Like flipping through, I was like 30 minutes in and they're like, are you dead in there? And I'm like, no, Mommy just needs a break. Or that one time where I actually gave myself a timeout, right? I was like, whoa, and I go to the room and I shut the door and lock the door. And they were like, Mom, what are you doing? And I was like, Mommy needs a timeout. Mom, what did you do? Right? And I was like, Mommy was bad. Yeah, Mommy was really bad. Just so I could have a break. So what you may or may not know about me is I raised my kids by myself for 6 years. And raising kids as a single mom has its journey. And I'm telling you, there was times where I didn't get to high-five somebody to step in and take over. I had to get creative. Thank you. And so I did what mothers do, and they just connect where they can. And that means connecting with themselves. And so, on a much more serious note, sometimes walking through motherhood is about walking through trials and tribulations as well. And I remember when my oldest son, when he was 5, lost his stuffy, the one that he sleeps with every night, and I literally watched his heart break. And I sat with him for hours in front of the fireplace and rocked him, and we both cried. And it still hits my heart just to think about it. He's 14 years old now, but I was like, oh my gosh. And then when he was 13, and he experienced his very first betrayal, and a friend that he had helped out completely betrayed him and stole from him. And I got to watch his heart break again, and he cried again. But this time he was much bigger. And I got to just rub his back on this one and tell him that not everybody's like that. And he's gonna be okay. Or when my littlest, really struggling with our divorce early on, I would tuck him into bed at night and I would say to him, I love you. And he would say, I hate you. Every night for 6 months. And I said to him, one day, particularly a hard day for me, why? Why do you hate me so much? And he said, because you're never here. You don't love me. I worked 3 jobs to put food on the table. And I had him in daycare forever, it seemed. But that was the day that my son taught me what his number 1 love language was, which was quality time. So I quit all my jobs, except one, and I reframed my life. And now I get to pick him up from school every day. And I invited other people into my world to help me raise them, and that's when I met Mark, who is, we affectionately refer to as Fommy, because he is a father mummy. He's the most nurturing, caring provider that there ever was. And so he taught us unconditional love and patience and kindness. And so I'm going to close today with a statement. I always say that it takes a community to raise a Jody, right? And it certainly took a community to raise my children. But Mark and I wrote a poem for you today, and we thought we'd close with it. Some of you no longer have a mom to tuck you in at night. Some of you were raised by dad. He rocked you oh so tight. Some of you were adopted by sweet and lovely mummies. Some of you raised yourselves and created your own families. Some of you fostered kids because your hearts are so big. Some of you chose not to have kids and would have rather raised a pig. However, you've experienced a mother in your years. It may have been through laughter, through disappointment, or through tears. Upon this day, it doesn't matter what your journey you've been through, a mother's womb, her heart and soul, gave the gift of life to you. So I ask you here to embrace this day from every year to year, and in this moment celebrate your life with laughter, love, and a tear. Cheers. So I get the pleasure of guiding you into a meditation. I'm going to ask that you separate your feet and allow your feet to get grounded into the earth. Take a deep breath in.
Oh, Mother Divine.
in and let it out. I want you to imagine a situation in your life where you feel you need some healing. Allow Mother Energy to come through you in a nurturing way. And I want you to imagine the person or the situation that you have energy on. You're going to repeat the Ha'aponopono prayer after me. I love you. Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Imagine them bathed in blue light. Imagine the situation bathed in blue light. Take a deep breath in.